Why ancient humans almost never felt lonely. Introduction. The loneliness crisis. Loneliness is one of the fastest growing epidemics of our time. Despite being more connected than ever through technology, we feel more isolated, more alone, more disconnected. Millions of people report feeling persistently lonely. Some say it's the defining emotional crisis of our generation. But here's what's fascinating. For most of human history, loneliness was almost non existent. Ancient humans rarely, if ever, experienced the crushing isolation we feel today. Not because they had better technology, not because they tried harder, but because they lived fundamentally different lives. They were surrounded by community constantly. Their survival depended on each other. Their happiness came from connection. Their purpose was intertwined with their group. So the question becomes, what changed? Why do we feel so alone in a world of 8 billion people? And what can ancient humans teach us about belonging? Let's travel back thousands of years and discover the surprising answer: ancient community structures. To understand why ancient humans didn't feel lonely, we first need to understand how they lived. Anthropologists and archaeologists have discovered that early humans lived in small, tight knit communities, bands of 20 to 50 people. Everyone knew everyone, not just casually, intimately. You knew where people came from. You knew their families. You knew their struggles. You lived alongside them every single day. There were no strangers in ancient communities, no acquaintances, no casual relationships. Every person was either family or someone you considered family. Archaeological evidence shows that these bands stayed relatively stable. The same people, year after year, generation after generation. This created something we rarely experience today: deep, unbreakable bonds, shared history spanning decades, complete understanding of each person's role and value. Each person contributed. Each person was essential. Each person was irreplaceable. This sense of belonging wasn't something people had to work for. It was automatic, built into the structure of society itself. You couldn't be lonely because loneliness required something that didn't exist: separation, constant togetherness. But it's more than just knowing your community. Ancient humans spent virtually every moment with the same people. Think about your day. You probably wake up alone. You might commute alone. You work in separate spaces, possibly in silence. You return home, maybe to family, maybe alone. You spend time online, alone. Your social contact is often scheduled and brief. Now imagine the opposite. You wake up surrounded by your community. Your entire day is spent with others, eating together, working together, caring for children together, celebrating together, mourning together. There is no concept of alone time as something desirable. The very idea would have seemed strange. Loneliness wasn't an emotional state to overcome. It was quite literally impossible. You couldn't be lonely because you were never alone. And even more importantly, you didn't want to be alone. Being with your community wasn't just what you did, it was who you were. Your identity was completely intertwined with your group. Ancient humans didn't think of themselves as separate individuals. They thought of themselves as members of their band, part of something larger, part of something essential. This constant togetherness created something remarkable: a complete absence of loneliness. Not because people were afraid of being alone, but because they fundamentally needed each other. And that need created connections so deep it was almost cellular: social bonds and kinship systems. The reason ancient humans felt so deeply connected wasn't just proximity, it was kinship. Ancient societies had sophisticated kinship systems, complex networks of relationships and obligations. You had biological family, parents, siblings, cousins, but you also had ceremonial family, people bound to you through ritual and tradition. Some societies even had fictive kinship people treated as family despite no blood relation. The result was a web of connections so intricate that everyone was family. Not metaphorically, literally. You had mothers, fathers, grandparents, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins. And if you weren't related by blood, relationships were created through ceremony and tradition that made you just as bonded. Archaeological and anthropological evidence shows that these kinship systems were not just social conveniences, they were the foundation of society. They determined who you shared food with, who you hunted with, who you relied on in times of crisis, and, crucially, who supported your emotional and psychological needs. Loneliness requires isolation, but kinship systems made isolation impossible. You were woven into a network of support so complete that being alone was literally unthinkable. People didn't have friends the way we do casual relationships that can be lost or abandoned. Everyone was bound through obligation, ritual, and blood. These bonds were permanent, unbreakable. This kinship system served another crucial function. It gave every person a clear place in society, a defined role, a specific purpose. And that sense of purpose is perhaps the greatest antidote to loneliness. When you know your place in the world, when you know you are essential, when you know you are valued, loneliness becomes impossible. Emotional support and resilience. One of the most significant functions of ancient kinship systems was emotional support. In modern times, if you're struggling emotionally, you might see a therapist. You might talk to a friend. You might turn to social media. But you often face the struggle alone. Ancient humans had something different. They had a support system so comprehensive it would astound modern psychologists. If you were grieving, your entire community shared your grief. They didn't just offer condolences. They participated in elaborate rituals designed to help you process loss. If you were sick, people cared for you constantly, not in a hospital, in your home, surrounded by loved ones. If you were struggling with fear or anxiety, you had multiple people reassuring you, supporting you, helping you. Archaeological and anthropological evidence shows that ancient societies had remarkably low rates of depression and anxiety, not because life was easier. It wasn't. Life was brutal and unpredictable. But because people never faced psychological struggles alone, they had built in support systems, ritual frameworks for processing difficulty, and most importantly, they had community. Modern loneliness often stems from a specific psychological need, the need to be witnessed, to be known, to be understood, to have your experience validated. Ancient humans had this automatically. Everyone knew your story. Everyone understood your struggles. Everyone was invested in your well being. You couldn't be invisible. You couldn't be misunderstood. You couldn't fall through the cracks because everyone was watching. Everyone cared. Everyone was connected. This constant social witnessing created psychological resilience we struggle to replicate today. Studies on modern loneliness show that the most devastating form of isolation is not physical, it's psychological. It's the feeling of being unknown, misunderstood, invisible. Ancient humans were never invisible. Their struggles were shared. Their victories were celebrated. Their existence was affirmed by the constant presence of others. And that affirmation was perhaps the greatest protection against loneliness. Now that we understand how ancient humans created such deep emotional bonds, how they supported each other through every struggle, we need to explore something equally important. How did they maintain these bonds through shared purpose? How did daily rituals and ceremonies cement belonging? And most importantly, what happens when we lose these structures? In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into the power of shared rituals and meaning, how modern society dismantled these systems, and what we can do to rebuild community in our own lives. You've just taken the first step on a journey toward understanding true belonging. Don't stop here. The most important insights are coming. If you found this chapter valuable, hit that like button. And most importantly, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the second chapter reveals not just what we've lost, but how we can get it back. See you in chapter 2. Because connection is calling.